Welcome to this Q&A of the film Songs of Repression, which is part of the 31st edition of Nordisk Panorama 2020. The film is not only nominated for the Best Nordic Documentary, but will also participate for the Audience Award, so please do not forget to vote after this session. My name is Martijn. I'm one of the programmers of the festival this year, and I'll be hosting the Q&A. I have the great pleasure to speak to both directors of Songs of Repression, Marianne Hougen-Moraga and Estephan Wagner. Welcome. How are you doing?
Hello, Martijn.
Thank you. Hi from Copenhagen.
It's been quite an eventful year, and you premiered your film in March at CPH Docs in Copenhagen and winning 2 big prizes there. But what's been happening so far? Of course, that's what we want to know a bit.
It has been traveling pretty nicely, mainly in Europe. Although right now we still have to keep it half confidential, but we have now the confirmed North American premiere and the confirmed Chilean premiere, which for us obviously is extremely important. And yeah, things are happening online, but nonetheless, we are trying to get the film out there, and actually it's getting a really good reception. So yeah, considering the situation, it's going really, really well.
Good to hear. Of course, you have both a connection to Chile. Can you tell us a bit about that, both of you?
Yeah, of course. We are both half Chilean. I'm half Chilean, half Danish, and Estephan is half German, half Chilean. I grew up with my Chilean mother, who was a refugee in '73 when Pinochet took over the power in Chile, and then I was born here and grew up hearing about Chile, longing for Chile, and also hearing about the region where the colony is placed, the colony in the film. My family lives very close to that place, and I was always told when I would hear people talking about it that one should never go near that place because political prisoners would disappear in there. So that was my view.
I grew up on the other side of the spectrum, you could say. I grew up in a Chilean-German minority in Chile, and nobody chooses where they get born. It's a very, just like Marianne grew up in a very left-wing family, I grew up in a very pretty hardcore right-wing family, which in Chile means a lot if you think about the history, specifically the dictatorship of Pinochet. And when I grew up in the capital Santiago, and when we would drive south every summer holidays, we would time the travel in a way that we could stop for lunch at the restaurant that the colony used to have, which at the time for me as a child and for my family seemed like this idyllic, beautiful place where people spoke German and you could safely run around. Obviously, we both grew up and learned that the world is much more complex than what we were told as children. And we formed our own ideas. But still that black and white image of our childhood was there, and we found it fascinating when we met each other that we had these 2 different sides of Chile inside us, and also the knowledge from 2 different sides about the colony.
Fantastic. So basically you two represented in a way some voices that you can hear in the film.
Oh yeah.
So how did you discuss that beforehand, or did you have to discuss it, or how did that work?
I mean, politically we have quite similar views. Of course, we have a lot of discussions about many different things, but so we didn't really have big discussions about our relationship to the participants in the film, or how we would view the colony and the whole situation there and around it. But we were very aware of our position towards the inhabitants in the colony and our view upon it throughout the whole process. We have spoken a lot with a guy who lives in Berlin and who investigates a lot about the colony. And he talks about this concept called Colonitis. And that means that when you end up having Colonitis, you end up thinking that everyone are pure victims of Paul Schaefer, who was the leader inside the colony. And we also sometimes, coming from our different sides, family sides, we both sometimes fell into this idea of, oh yeah, maybe they are all pure victims, and we shouldn't really discuss more whether they should take more responsibility or not for the whole situation and what has happened and what is happening today. And then the other one would tell, no, listen, we have to discuss this. There are lots of different facts that are very important to talk about and to discuss and to take responsibility for. So, yeah, I think that was more the discussions we had than coming from different backgrounds.
And of course we grew up and we grew and formed our own ideas. I mean, particularly in terms of politics, I've distanced myself quite radically from my family and their political views. So, but
and
yes,
I can tell from your films, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Is the film, in a sense, a sort of a metaphor for Chile as a whole?
In a way, you could say so. In terms of, there is this very common discourse on one side and on the other side. Each one, it's like the Facebook bubble, you know, each one owns their truth, and people do no longer talk with each other. So either you have a view, which is mainly from the left, that all the ones from the colony, they're almost, you could say, monsters. They're all victimizers, and they just should be kicked out there, and the whole place should become a huge memorial. Or you have the other side, and you see, I mean, you see more of them in the film, but it's more the people who say, oh, come on. I mean, they're all victims, these poor people, and also they are so nice, and they make this delicious German food and serve good beer, and then it's so beautiful. So let's forget about it and let's look into the future. And what we really wanted is to create a much more nuanced film that says, well, they're not victims or victimizers. They're actually both, most of them. And so is the Chilean reality. And so is the world. I mean, we often looked at other post-totalitarian regimes, post-totalitarian countries, where the same phenomenon happens again and again. So it's almost a metaphor for many more places than just Chile.
Yeah, I agree. And but how easy is it to prevent that? Of course, we can make films, we can make art, we can write books, etc. But still, these things seem to come back. How do you feel about that? Or do you think we can make a change, or you can make a change?
Well, our aim with this film is that we can discuss how to actually make a change, to break the repetition of totalitarian regimes, and with that, the repetition of repressing systems, repressing opinions, thoughts, emotions. So I don't think we have a final clear answer of how to do it, but this film is certainly a film that we hope can open up for a discussion, both in Chile, but hopefully around the world, in different places. We have already got a lot of responses of people from different places that say they can totally see similarities to where they come from. And that is really our aim. We're actually very excited about how it will be received in Chile now, because the colony is, as you also asked, it is a small climate, but where you have a repetition of a totalitarian regime. But actually further up in Chile right now, there's also a lot going on, people demonstrating against the system that is also repressing other people because there isn't enough, they don't earn enough money to live. And the military is on the streets right now, both due to COVID-19, people can't go out, but also because there's been so many demonstrations regarding the economy and the whole constitution there.
Yeah. You've worked 3.5 years on the film, and it's I think you can see that it's so super precise and etc. And but you also decided to include yourself in the film. It becomes a bit self-reflective, and you don't want to hide. When did you conceive of this idea?
It was pretty early on during the shooting. We didn't think about it while we were researching or planning. But when we started filming, we realized very quickly that it was necessary. And necessary in several senses. Partly it is an entry point for the audience, we hope, to look at them and at their story and past through the eyes of somebody who is not judging. Because it would be so easy to point the fingers and say like, oh, you guys, you know what you did. It's just, but no, we don't. And we explicitly don't, because as Marianne explained, we want to add a grain of sand to opening a discussion and bringing people of different opinions together. So that was one reason. The other reason was that it transmits a relationship that we create. It's not the journalist who goes somewhere with pre-established questions, asks so long until he gets the answer that he wants to get, and then he leaves. No, we built a true relationship, and it's not a one that we set up for the film, but we've created friendships with people, and we've become very intimate to their lives, and we have shared a lot of our lives with them. And so it's mutual trust. And for us, giving a sense of that to the audience allows them to put the right glasses on how to look and how to understand what's going on. So yeah, it was in the filming, but then when we came to the editing, it became very, very clear that we needed that it would give a total different perspective. So much so that the film opens with the first line being set as a question that a character addresses to us, asking us, how do you want us to film this? Do you want this table here or not? And the answer is, well, just make yourself comfortable and do it just as you want. And that sets the tone for the rest of the film, and I think it comes across.
Yeah, it comes back too, of course, because there's so many scenes where you start a bit earlier than you would normally expect.
Yes.
Which gives it also a little lightness, I think, and a bit of an informal feeling. How is it to work together? You're a couple, so you have a family, but you're also making films far away in the world. How do you plan? How do you discuss who's doing what? Maybe.
We couldn't make this film just one of us, both because of our backgrounds, and actually mostly because of that, but also because we wanted to work together and use our different views on and approaches to the inhabitants. And for example, you could say one thing was that because of my family relationships, I got very easily contact to all the people from the left wing, all the NGOs that are fighting to get a truth about what happened to the disappeared political prisoners, and to the archaeologists, forensic archaeologists who are excavating. And on the other hand, Estephan would much easier than me get access to the colony because he speaks fluently German. I speak German, but not fluently. Still, I don't look like I look a bit different than other Chileans, and I live in Denmark, so that would also make it easy for me to enter the colony. But clearly Estephan was the one who also could draw on all the cultural knowledge you had about being German Chilean in Chile. And then when we act practically, when we work together, it changes a bit. It's very fluid. It's sometimes Estephan who holds the camera, sometimes me, mostly Estephan, and I did ask sometimes, but sometimes I would also sort of whisper to Estephan what I think we should ask, because his German is more fluent, and then when we would go alone, because sometimes one of us had to stay back home with the children, then the other one, we would speak a lot beforehand. How do we approach the shoot today? What are our wishes? And then most often we could come back with something completely different. But the other one would always have something to say on beforehand, and we would call each other sometimes while we were filming.
Okay. Yeah, you practiced a bit on a film before, of course. Sea of Sorrow, Sea of Hope. Was that a good practice pitch for this long film?
Yeah, it was a bit of a practice. It was a short film that it was the first film we directed together, and it was a bit of a test to see how it works to collaborate. Because I mean, in two ways. One is obviously the creative part of making film, but then sometimes you forget that there's the other side around. I mean, how does it influence your private life? It can take over. So we made this rule that we don't talk about work in bed, and it was very good.
Smart decision. You look very happy, so that's good. We're nearing a bit the end of the Q&A, unfortunately, but I want to know two things a bit. Have the people seen the film themselves? And what are you up to, maybe for a new project?
Yes, so we went to Chile to show the film, and it was very, very important for us. We had promised the participants that they would see the film before it would come out. And when we, very late in the process, we were still post-producing, applied to CPH Docs and got into it. We had very little time, and COVID-19 was locking all the countries down. So it was a pretty crazy trip down there. Very short, very intense, but extremely rewarding. So we had two screenings in the colony where we invited all the adults, and it was catharsic. We had never anticipated that. Actually, we had so many positive comments, because especially in Chile and in Germany, this place is well known, and many journalists have gone, made lots of reportages and short news pieces, books have been written, you name it. And we were told again and again that it was the first time they had seen themselves on screen.
Wow.
They could realize that they were being portrayed in an honest way. We were also told that, mainly by our protagonists, Horst and Helga, that they realized watching themselves how seriously damaged they are. Because the traumas and the depression obviously also kind of make them keep it under the carpet, which was a painful discovery for them, but also a very honest one. So they were very, very grateful.
And also, it also encouraged them even more to fight for their rights inside the colony.
Yeah. And what are you up to? We have a really short time for an answer.
Well, we actually at the moment we always collaborate in some way or another. When one directs, the other one is also part of the project. But at the moment Estephan is editing films, and I am developing 2 new projects that are very much in their initial state.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot to the both of you. It's been a great pleasure seeing you and talking to you. And thanks for the audience for watching. Please don't forget to vote for the Audience Awards and try to see some other films. And see you hopefully next year for real. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Martijn.
and thanks
Bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye.